And you may go, Rachel.
I'm here with Dr. Dick Malott, who's a professor in the Department of Psychology at Western Michigan University. Dr. Malott is also the interim president of the Association for Behavior Analysis International. We've asked Dr. Malott to tell us a little bit about the early years at WMU when the behavioral analysis culture there was just first starting to develop. So specifically, before we get to WMU, what events in your life led you to become a behavior analyst?
That may take longer than we have time for the interview, but I'll try to give you a Reader's Digest version. When I was in high school, I read some books by Jack London. One of them was, of course, called Wild, but another one was White Fang. White Fang was a wolf dog, I believe, but he was bad, and he was vicious. And Jack London said it was not his fault. He was determined that was his environment that put him there. And that's my first introduction to the concept of determinism. Then I went to Indiana University to be a medical pre-med because my father and my grandfather were MDs. And the only reasonable thing for a person to do was to be an MD. And I took a chemistry course the freshman year, and I kept setting everything on fire and breaking test tubes. And a friend of mine, Steve Kendall, who was a freshman also, told me about this great introductory psychology course taught by a guy named Jim Dinsmore. They were using a textbook by a guy named Skinner, and they talked about the concept of determinism. And I thought that was pretty cool. Did they use test tubes and stuff? No. Okay. Then that might. So my first semester, my sophomore year, I took a course from Dinsmore, and at that time he was using Keller and Schoenfeld's book. And that was it. It was just so great. And then I got the rat lab the next semester, and the rat lab was just a killer. Putting rid off the rat in the Skinner box, give them a drop of water whenever we pressed the lever. That did it. Then I got my bachelor's degree at Indiana, a year of master's program there. And loved it all. I loved general experimental psychology. And I was going to go, early on I knew I was going to go into psychology and experimental psychology. I didn't really, I don't know what I was thinking at the time, what I was going to do with it. I guess I assumed I was going to get a job at the university being a scientist or a teacher. So I ended up at Columbia University, had a course from the first summer I was there from Fred Keller. Keller completely, well, I was turned on to behavior analysis, but Keller turned me on to the notion that I should get in the lab itself and actually do research and get rat feces all over me. And so at the end of that semester, I was hot for the lab and worked with rats for the rest of my time in the doctoral program. I was supervised by Bill Cumming, who had been a student of Keller and Schoenfeld's. Schoenfeld was also there, and he was also very inspirational. I did my dissertation on schedules of reinforcement and response time schedules, differential reinforcement of low rate. Went to Denison University, which was they had some Cantorian faculty members, students of J.R. Cantor. I'd had a course from Cantor when I was an undergrad at Indiana University. And so it was a good behavioral program in Denison University. It was a small liberal arts college in Ohio. And good students, good faculty. And after I was there 3 years, well, a guy by the name of Paul Mountjoy, who had been a student of J.R. Cantor's at Indiana University, had hired me to teach at Denison University. And after I was there for a year or so, he then moved to Western Michigan University. And after my third year, he convinced me to come to Western Michigan University. At that point, I had decided that I really wanted to sort of start a behavior analysis undergraduate program, really specialized in behavior analysis. And when I sort of reluctantly went to Western Michigan University because it was already, they were going to have a bunch of behavior analysts and they didn't need another one. They didn't need me. It seemed like I should go to some little liberal arts college and start a program with 2 or 3 behavior analytic faculty members. But they convinced me to come. The year before, they had hired, I guess 2 years before, they'd hired Paul Mountjoy, who I was just talking about, and also David Lyon, who had gotten his PhD at Indiana University from Jim Dinsmore. So it's all kind of tightly integrated, Indiana and so forth. And so Mountjoy and Lyon somehow convinced the administration that they should hire, the administration was trying to upgrade the psychology department. And Western Michigan University had been a teacher's college, and they were kind of wanting to move up in the hierarchy. They wanted to get researchers and so forth at the university. So Lyon and Mountjoy convinced the department that they should hire Roger Ulrich to be the new chair of the department. Roger was at Liberal Arts College out in Illinois Wesleyan at the time, had been a student of Nate Azrin's. So Roger said, well, I'd be happy to come to Western Michigan University, but I can't do it by myself. You'd have to hire Neil Kent, another Indiana University graduate who was, I think, out in Iowa at the time, again, liberal arts college. And so they hired Roger and Neil, I guess it would be 1965, probably. And there were a number of faculty members there who were not too productive, and they were not behavior analysts. And Roger and Neil tried to set things up to help them become more productive, because that was part of the idea, not necessarily behavior analysts. And that wasn't real successful over the years. And so in '66, they brought in me, Billy Hopkins, I don't have it right now, 2 or 3 other behavior analysts. And Don Whaley. Whaley and I came in at the same time. That was '66. Whaley just got his PhD. And I think actually Billy Hopkins had been one of Whaley's professors at some point down in Florida. I'm not positive about that. And Neil was a genius at getting things to happen. He hired Billy and somebody else, I can't think of the name right now, to teach at Western in this behavior analysis program, but we didn't have enough money to hire all these guys. And so Billy was at the state hospital full-time and teaching at Western part-time. And the other guy I was trying to think of is Rob Hawkins, who was probably a school psychologist. And I hired Rob and got him in a job in the public school system as a school psychologist PhD and teaching part-time at Western. And so he's building this behavior analytics department. So we had Paul Mountjoy and Dave Lyon. Dave was experimental analyst. Paul was experimental and theoretical. And then they brought in Roger and Neil this next year, so that's 4. And then they brought in Don and me and Ron Hutchinson, I think, who was another Azrin student and did a lot of early integration work with monkeys and so forth. I think that the 3 of us maybe were full-time. And then they picked up Rob Hawkins and Bill Hopkins, not paying much. But they were full voting faculty members. They were adjunct faculty members, but they were full voting faculty members. They could have master's students. We didn't have a PhD program at the time. And he brought someone else in who I'm trying to think of now, the next year, who worked with Billy at the state hospital. And then to get more of our departmental resources to hire someone else, I don't think who it is right now. After a year or so, he set it up so that Don Whaley would go to Fort Custer State Hospital and work there full-time, but still be almost active in the psych department. And Neil also had his wife, Louise Kent, a behavior analyst from Indiana University, at Fort Custer State State Hospital full-time, and also teaching major courses. And so he managed to con a lot of people into doing a lot of really great work and being heavily participative in our program. So we had a big cluster of behavior analysts from day one. Another guy was he was a early behavior pharmacologist, Doug. I'm not getting the one. He was at Upjohn Pharmaceutical, and we ended up hiring him. That may have been what Ben Whaley had to move to Fort Custer to bring in the funding for Doug Anger, who incidentally was the guy who did some of the early response time work when he was at Harvard University, I believe, where he got his PhD. And that's some of the stuff that inspired me. It inspired me for my dissertation. So by 1960, and Jack, maybe it was Whaley moved out, so Jack Michael could be funded. I'm not quite sure. Jack came in the next year, which would be 67. And so that was 67. That was a powerful core of behavior analysts. There had been a collection of behavior analysts at Arizona State University before Western, and Jack Michael, Izzy Golddiamond, and 2 or 3 other behavior analysts were there, and that fell apart. They weren't getting along with each other, and internecine warfare, and so it was predicted that Western would fall apart. And about that same time, the behavior analysts were developing a program at the University of Kansas. It may have been slightly before, but it was all pretty much the same. And it was everybody was pretty clear that we really wouldn't last, because behavior analysts cannot can't get along that well. And we had some bloodbaths. I don't think we've ever come close to collapsing, but we had some bloodbaths within the department, and periodically, I'm sure we still will. But it's been cool. Also, when we first came there, and it became clear that we really are behavior analysts, and what behavior analysts are, and we're pretty non-compromising, and maybe not quite as tactful as we might have been. The administration pretty soon became pretty upset with us, and people in the philosophy department, the religion department, and so forth and so on. And we need to have a more broad program, so there's a lot of pressure. And within a few years, the guy who had been the associate dean, who really hated us, he was from the religion department, and became the dean. And within a few years, we were like the model department. They loved us. But that's coming on. We've had vice presidents who wanted to kind of close us down a couple of times, and we're still there. They're all gone, and we haven't really had to compromise. So once again, at the moment, we are considered like one of the model departments. I don't know what it'll be like 10 years from now, but I predict it will be there. The nature of the program has changed somewhat. Originally, there was no PhD programs, practically none at Western. We were one of the first ones. Again, it was a teacher's college, so we were one of the first departments to have a PhD program. I was concerned that when we have a strong involvement with the undergrads, and that's kind of one of the things I really like to hype. So we had a strong involvement with the undergrads. A lot of undergrad students had undergrad departmental assistantships helping us do things, and both